la, la. Okay, your Dreesen story. Yeah, I love Tom Dreesen, man.
So in the morning show, I came to New York from LA. I grew up in the East Coast, but I went to the West Coast for various reasons. I came back. I was living in a hotel in Times Square. Seriously, where there'd be 2 or 3 gunshots a week.
Yeah, that's the
Not
old
kidding.
Times Square. People
Yeah.
don't remember the old Times
Yeah.
Square.
No, the 70s, and then they Disneyfied it. But at any rate, I didn't know anybody, so I was staying in my office at 30 Rock most weekends and stuff. And one Saturday, the phone rang, which was very unusual, and I picked it up, and the voice said, "Hi, Dave there?" I said, "No, I'm alone in the office." He goes, "This is Tom Dreesen. I'm out here in Vegas opening for Frank, and I wanted to, that's fine, Tom, but I just answered the phone, Tom. Whatever." No, he was one of the best guests ever. He really is a great guest.
Oh yeah, well, the thing
Funny
I love
guy.
about when guys like him or Mr. Miller, oh man, I wish I could have met George Miller.
George Miller was fantastic.
Yeah.
George Miller. We did a bunch of remotes for the morning show using my sad little apartment on East 23rd Street in Manhattan.
That was your apartment.
That was my apartment. And George Miller, who was very, very funny and devastating when he died, just devastating.
Yeah.
And I had to put together a bunch of clips of him on the show, and geez, it was one of those things where it was bittersweet, because you enjoyed it again, and he knew it was it was cancer, and it was progressive, and it's not like he's hit by a truck, so you sort of know it's going to happen, and yet when it does happen, it's very, very sad. And very talented guy with absolutely unique persona. I mean, his comic persona was just like sort of like a guy you just woke up and but at any rate, he always made people laugh, always made Dave laugh, which is very important. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, we talk about Dreesen as a guest and some of these things with George. The guys who had the past with Dave just had a different vibe when they would come on the show.
Absolutely.
And I think about like even Tim Thomerson, the Tales from the Old West at the end. I think
that was funny.
After your time, I guess. So when you left in 2004, we're going to jump around a little bit, Gerry.
Sure.
I appreciate that. By the way, we just kind of jumped into this. Gerard Mulligan, legend when it comes to Dave and Company. Really, at the end of the day, when it comes to Dave and Company, other than Merrill, I mean, I don't know. You almost even precede Merrill because you started writing Tonight Show guest appearance monologue stuff for Dave. I mean,
right.
Like very, very, very beginning.
Merrill was dating Dave at the time, which is how I got in touch with him. And there aren't too many people. There were 2 or 3 staff members who came over from Bob Stewart. Bob Stewart was a producer of the morning show. Yeah. And Dave had done stuff, game shows of his, like $100,000 Pyramid.
Right.
So he wanted a producer who wouldn't interfere with the comedy and try to, dumb it down or whatever.
Yeah.
Who would just get the checks out on time, make sure the studio was heated, all that stuff. So several people came over from that group, including 2 who went. Barbara Gaines was on from the very first day to the very last day on the show.
Yeah. Barbara, Jude, yourself, and Dave is what I have. Is Jude, I don't know if there's anybody else.
Brennan, Jude Brennan, who went on and off. She went and worked on that Oxygen network for a while. Came back. Yeah.
And then Biff.
I haven't seen her in a while. I saw Gaines a couple of weeks ago at a barbecue. How suburban is that? I got my boho street cred. But anyway, Tommy Ruprecht, who was a great writer, friend of mine.
We had him on the show as well. Tommy's amazing.
He is funny. Did he tell you the Matthew Ryan story?
No, let's do it.
He probably didn't, but at any rate, I used to love to find a musician and convince the talent and Dave to put him on the show. And I heard this great debut album by a guy named Matthew Ryan from Pittsburgh, and we got him on the show. He was on a few times, long story short.
Sure.
In the final days of Late Show, when I was no longer there, they were looking for people who had been on the show early on and they want to bring them back. So there are a couple of people like that. So I got an email from Matthew Ryan saying, the Letterman people just contacted me and they said, I'm being considered for one of the final spots on the show, which I would thank you so much. I'm sure it was you that did it. I said, no, actually, it was Tommy Ruprecht, who was also a big fan. He said, okay, well, give me his email and I'll thank him. So I gave him the email. And a couple of days later, I get, that wasn't Tommy Ruprecht's email. That was an old guy named Tom Ruprecht in Florida who did wish me well and hope that I got the gig. So, that's all's well that ends well,
Who did wish me well.
He did, yeah. I thought that was a nice touch.
That was a
young man. I hope you do get the gig.
When you retired, quote unquote, in 04, and I got to ask you about this. I think we're past the statute of limitations here. The word on the street is that you retired due to completely political reasons. It was to do with a pension, and if you didn't retire, the pension wasn't going to kick in or something like that. I don't know if that's true or not. Is that false? That's
I just had not wanted to spend time with my kids. I wanted to go to graduations and stuff. And the Writers Guild had a great pension. Maybe where that originated from was they did make a change where if you were 59, you could retire at full pension.
Okay,
giving younger writers a chance to break in.
Right.
And it's a great pension, so I took it and started traveling. I didn't travel much, and we finally traveled and went around different places in other parts of the world beside the United States and Canada. Went to Montreal. I was hoping to see the Expos. Turned out they'd left several years before, but don't really pay attention. And no, it's nothing political, nothing like that at all. I sort of regret it. There was an item in I don't have it. I should have prepared. There was an item in the Inquirer, a little gossip called Michael Starr, I think, saying something like Mulligan was retiring because he's fed up or something. And as he left, David whispered to him, "You better not go work for Leno." Something, he got my name wrong. David never said that to me. There were several other just factual stuff that wasn't even wrong. I don't think he even got a source that lied to him. I think he just made it up.
Yeah,
seriously, because David didn't say much at all. And I have a cat. One of the cats maybe come in. So if there's a cameo by a cat, I'm sure that's fine.
No, that's bonus material for everybody who's watching. No, I'm really curious because it was like you were part of this freight train that started with the excitement of a fresh-faced dream come true moment of a guy who would turn out to be who many call, myself included, the greatest broadcaster in history. Starting out with the dream come true moment, guest hosting the Tonight Show. Oh my God, getting an experimental morning show canceled, but then Carson and company believing and the people behind the scenes, okay, so let's move this thing to late night, and the freight train that it became. At one point, this guy is the most talked about man in America when it comes to broadcasting and entertainment. And then in 04, you leave. So the freight train that you were a part of and then leaving, that must have been really, really jarring. It's great to see the family and all that stuff. Great on paper to say, yeah, I got more time now. But that must have been really jarring.
Yeah. I retired on a daily basis. I wasn't coming in the office anymore. I did make appearances like once or twice a month for the next 10 years.
Yes.
Just to give the belie to the term retirement. Yes. And I would just sit here and wait for the big black car to show up in Nutley, New Jersey, go through the Lincoln Tunnel, and we'd rehearse. I'd go in Carnegie Deli and get a sandwich, come back, we do the show. I go to the writers' dinner. The writers get catered dinners every night after the show where they talk over the show, et cetera. Yeah. And they finally set a price limit because people were getting a little bit crazy. But we would be sitting, we'd usually dine during the show, and we watched the show, and it was very entertaining. One nightmare scenario would be, though, David would read the top 10. It wouldn't get much of a reaction. And everyone would go 3, 2, 1. The phone rings. Dave wants a new top 10. We're gonna hold the audience. Okay, so we've got topics. We'd already been through the submitted literally dozens, maybe 100 topics. You pick one, done, maybe 200, 300 takes on jokes. We got it down to 10, and it didn't play. Or Dave just didn't like it, had second thought, whatever. And we'd have to do it. And that was like, you have a restless audience. Many of them have to go to the bathroom, have to go to dinner. And waiting, we're going to wait. And we shoot the top 10. And that was a nightmare in the middle of your dinner. to get a phone call. It's like being a fireman and hearing the bell ring in the middle of dinner, you know.
The how many times do you think that happened?
Probably 20, maybe. I mean, it wasn't a
Okay.
daily occurrence. Usually the list was so vetted, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh
The other
yeah.
thing that happened like that was, but it was much more exciting, was a story breaks at
Right.
4:30. You know, we
Yep.
shoot at 5:30. And David, I didn't realize this. David always shot at 5:30. The clock in the controller was at 5:30:00.
Yep.
Other people like Conan, one of the best there is,
Sure.
5:40, 5:45.
Yep.
Whatever, you know. David, I can't remember the time when they held the show. I can't. I think and that was just part of the routine, because you know, a lot of athletes have superstitions, and a lot of entertainers have superstitions, and I think it's because it all seems so perilous. It all seems so maybe transitory. You know, it seems like I was hit by lightning and it's wearing off. What happens if I lose the lightning altogether? I lose the spark. And I think the rituals, like, you know, Wade Boggs, when he was with the Red Sox, had a thing with certain pieces of fried chicken. You know, he'd go and stand on third base for a while, and all that stuff. And you can see why that is. It's just like, I don't know why I thought of this joke. And what if I stop thinking of jokes, you know? Or what if I just look at the Yankees? The Yankees, they had such a powerhouse lineup this year. Guys are hitting 210, and you know, Aaron Judge is striking out on a nightly basis. It's sort of like, it can be very ephemeral.
Yeah.
There are cases, I don't know if you follow American baseball, Pittsburgh Pirates, there was a guy named Steve Blass, who was an unhittable pitcher, lost it almost overnight. Just couldn't throw over the plate. Or Chuck Knobloch played for the Yankees. And he got what's called the yips, like in golf. He could no longer throw to first base. He would feel really well, and he would throw it 10 feet over the first base. And it just happens. And I think they're afraid that that's going to happen to them, you know. So you go through rituals. I have no idea how that conversation started there.
No, and it's great. I've got a couple of questions that I want to pick up off the ground from that have come from that. You know, the idea of starting it, like I've talked to people, maybe even on the show a little bit here. I think most of them have been off camera, but talk to people where he talked about the Q&A. You know, I had this really amazing moment at the Q&A with Dave about a month before he retired, and the Q&A was really, really special. Well, the Q&A evolved over time, and how Dave's interest in the Q&A and how he would be talking to people in the audience and whatnot, and sometimes could let it slide a little bit longer. But there are stories where he would be like mid-sentence with somebody during the Q&A, and it's 5:30. Okay, we're stopped, and kick it in, Paul, we're going. And it was tight like a drum. And also the idea that it was live to tape, but the excitement of feeling like it was live, you know, like how the band would play during the commercials. It wasn't an intro, outro type of thing. Oh, we're back now, you know, play the 3 or 4 seconds that's going to lead in, like it's been that the audience has heard the song the whole time. No, you guys went, and 2-minute commercials, the band playing the entire time, keeping the energy up. It was now, that being said, it's great. What a great presentation. But also, if you're 5 nights a week or 4 nights a week, and a couple times on Thursday, if you're doing that kind of energy, like you're playing like you're live, that is a tremendous amount of energy to expedite out of you, and it takes a lot out of you. Did you have some re-entry issues when you know, I know, I love that you stayed around for the next 10 years, but did you have some re-entry issues when you didn't have to go to the office every day?
No, it was so great. I mean, you know, just hanging around the house. No, that was more of a problem for my family. But no, I did. No, not at all. I relaxed. I was semi-retired for years before I actually left. In fact, I would often leave for you know, sometimes I'd have to leave before the show was over. And there was one time I'd get the bus from the Port Authority bus terminal, the crime center of Manhattan, to go to my home in New Jersey for whatever, maybe I had an appointment. And I remember one time I was walking down 53rd Street alongside of the theater. I forgot we were doing a live camera on 53rd Street that day. And so I'm walking down. I hear, Mulligan. Oh, catching the bus. Yeah, I'm catching the bus. That was it. That was fine. I mean, fine.
Well, and that leads me That's some found comedy right there.
Yeah.
Talking about the being back in the writers' room, and suddenly that call shows up. Oh shit! Okay, he needs
Yeah.
another top 10 list. We're holding the audience. Oh my gosh! And just what we're talking about here really shows the gravity of what an interruption that would be. Like the idea that I saw the show a couple of times live, of course, and you didn't even know when there was a screw up. Something would happen and Dave would bobble a word or two and go, okay, yeah, no, we'll just take it, we'll keep going, okay, and then he would just start back up again, and you'd have to be really on point to catch it, even because it just rolled.
It was tough.
And so getting that call, we're holding the audience, oh shit, that is a disruption. Did you guys have some evergreen top 10 lists sitting there waiting, like some backup ones, or was it no, it's the moment?
We had a lot of non-topical ones, but we never really banked them. I don't remember. I think David wanted something fresh all the time.
Yeah.
I remember one, by the way, this is not exactly off topic. We had a writers meeting, and I don't remember which one of us, Rob Burnett or I, came up with the idea. And maybe it was one of those things where, people don't realize how collaborative it is. Somebody might start something, like, no, the reference is wrong. It's not Danny DeVito. It should be this. Oh yeah, that makes the joke. The reference.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was, how about this for a top 10 topic next week? Ways the world would be different if everybody were named Bob. I think it might have been a different reference. Might have been, Joe or whatever.
Sure.
And Rob and I were both tickled by the idea. The head writer at the time, whoever it was, wasn't that tickled. Rob and I both separately on the weekend came up with lists just out of curiosity. And, there's stuff like the name is Bob, Bond, Bob Bond. Or every Bob, and Bob in the world was going to do that.
Sure.
And we actually got a good list out of it, and it played pretty well. But anyway,
Bob Bond, take my money.
Exactly.
I'm going to see Bob Bond on Friday.
Yep.
I'm so grateful that you are taking time to do this here. I want to talk about Dave on the Tonight Show back in the day. If there's any memories of that. You didn't write for his first Tonight Show, did you?
No, not at all. That was all his stand-up. I mean, Merrill might have kicked in.
Sorry. The first time he guest hosted. Sorry, that's what we're talking about.
I did.
Here.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's interesting because Dreesen and I, going back to the beginning of this conversation, because Dreesen was with him, and that night after he hosted his very first guest spot on the Tonight Show, he went immediately to the Comedy Store where the strike was going on and picked up a picket sign and started picketing. So that night is a night that there's some famousness to it, and there's also some infamy to it.
Yeah.
What a big night for a guy like that to come in and guest host for the very first time. Do you have any memories of that night? What was the sensibility?
Well, I didn't write for his first, but I don't know if you remember, but I don't know if this ever happened before. He got the guest host offer after his first appearance.
Yeah.
He came over to the couch, which is the beginning. All the greats have come over to the couch after their first appearance.
Yep.
And if he just sort of if Johnny just sat there and waved, it's like, oh man, I didn't get to sit on the couch.
Yep.
But at any rate, no, I don't remember too much about those days. I just remember I was in New York for most of them.
Yep.
And I would fax him. No, I didn't even fax him. I think I probably even mailed him the jokes. I don't think I had a fax machine. I know, and they would send me something. And I remember one night, I think he was doing Monday nights when Johnny was off for a while.
Yeah.
And so I turned on, and at 11:30 to see what jokes, if any, he'd chosen. It wasn't on. It was a rerun of Johnny. I thought, what the hell? Was there an accident? But what happened? And you know what it was? There'd been a fire in the studio in Burbank, and they ran a rear. I thought, at any rate, that story has no ending. But there was a fire in the studio.
Well, it kind of does, because the very last morning show there was a fire on the set as well. I mean, it seems like fire might follow you guys a little bit.
That was one of those Merrill ideas. Like, let's have a wedding reception or a 50th anniversary on the show or whatever, and it just like, some of them worked out great. Some of them, I think Randy Cohen had the idea of the 360 show.
Yeah.
But the show, just like a lot of people got dizzy. Another one, we did an all Spanish show, I think with subtitles. And apparently, a lot of the more conservative viewers in Florida were very upset. Were very upset. No, they're taking. And another time we did, I think it was a 360 show. Some woman wrote and said, "My grandmother called me and she said she thought she was going insane because the image on the show, the show kept turning. You know, some work, some don't."
Oh man, it was so good. Like the experimental nature, it's just something that isn't allowed to be done these days on, especially on network TV. I mean, there's stuff on the internet and whatnot, and there's some interesting stuff that I find Netflix is coming out with that it's you could classify it as experimental, but I feel like you guys were so ahead of the curve when it came to being a little bit askew, a little bit out there. And it seems like you were one of the people right at the very beginning that had that same odd sensibility that Meryl and Dave both had. Were there ever times where something was a little too weird? I imagine there must have been times. There must have been pitches for shows that just didn't get green lit. Was there anything that you wish you would have done?
I mostly wrote jokes, to tell you the truth, the morning show. The person who was besides Merrill, who came up with the oddest ideas, I thought was George Meyer. George Meyer was just brilliant. He went at Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons, but I'm trying to think of some ideas. He did. I think his idea was the giant doorknob. And it was just a giant doorknob. And it was just, I guess we had a fake ad. It's just much bigger than a doorknob should be. It's just a giant doorknob. And then, somebody found the world's largest vase. Yeah, it was in somewhere in the Midwest. And so we had it on the show for a week. And I think Jim Downey did the voiceover. I don't know who wrote it for the last appearance of the giant vase. It was center stage. They pulled the curtain back on a pedestal with security guards on either side. And the Jim Downey, first of all, Jim Downey has a great voice. He does a lot of voiceovers on SNL, still does. And it was farewell, audience. My week here has been very memorable. I hope I have helped you achieve the dream of growth. And on and on and on and on and on. And then they closed the curtains and it was over. But that was just something I don't think you would see anywhere else, the giant face. That was just crazy.
I love that. And the attention to detail that you guys did. I mean, we're jumping around like crazy here, which I'm totally cool to do. I'm totally cool to do.
Yeah.
Like I think about some of the shit you did with Chris Elliot. And
that was all Chris's stuff. And he is just, he's so out there. I mean, the Marlon Brando stuff, where the hell did that come from? I mean, Jesus Christ, seriously. That was so nuts. And he had holding a whole bunch of bananas and making up stuff and saying, where's the tree? Where's the tree? Where do I see the tree? I mean, geez, God, yeah, that was just nuts. That was really nuts. I remember one of the things we did was he came up with the idea of making fun of Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yep.
And we did that. And we went to a place, Danbury, Connecticut, which is like 40 miles from here, from Manhattan. And we were in out front of a supermarket in a shopping mall and just relaxing between takes, just leaning against the wall. And I guess somebody had called the cops and said, there's some really weird looking people outside this ShopRite in Danbury. You better get over there. So the cops went over there and all of this. You have where's your permit? All this stuff. And I think Jerry Foley just said, well, we want to call the mayor because the mayor just told us we're cool we can shoot anywhere in the city if we want, but please go ahead. And we did. We were fine.
Danbury, that was where Dave was living at the time, was it not?
No, he lived in New Canaan.
Oh, New Canaan. Okay, yes. New Canaan,
which is a much more upscale place. And also he was always on what's called the Merritt Parkway, which is runs parallel to the turnpike, but it's like more scenic and all he would be doing beyond the speed limit. And you could always tell because he would often say something in the show. He would just say like, oh, by the way, I just want to thank the Connecticut State Troopers for their attention to detail. What the hell is he talking about? And I had no idea because we didn't ever talk about contract status or the show status, anything.
Right.
There was a period when he was obsessed with Warren Littlefield, the NBC exec.
This is at the NBC days, or this is after the fact?
Oh no, this is the NBC days.
Yep.
Yeah, and he would say he would put up his headshot, Warren Littlefield, and he would say, "Oh, what? He's going into a programming trance," and they would, they do the wavy stuff, whatever, twist, and oh, he's coming up with a new idea, folks. Oh, this is going to be good. And it was like, oh, it's a talking monkey. I know. He's a very successful producer. I'm always seeing shows on all kinds of Warren Littlefield. There's another guy with another Littlefield name who's probably his son. I don't know. I don't follow the trades, to tell you the truth. I really don't.
Well, I love, oh God, I love doing this with you and just going back and forth with this. I want to go back to the remotes for a second here, because it's hard to wrap your head around the idea. Okay, so you're one of the core writers for the show for a long time, and then suddenly you and Chris Elliot are on the set of a parody of Dangerous Liaison, where you're all dressed up in the British outfits and doing your thing, and Kathleen Anchor shows up and all that. So when that stuff is happening, like, is that shot around the same time that the workday is happening? Is that shot on weekends? Is that shot,
depends.
Okay.
No, we never shot, except for the first couple of years, we never shot on Fridays. We did 2 shows on Thursdays.
Yep.
And so Fridays was usually a remote day.
Okay.
Stuff like the Dangerous Liaisons, or we did a thing about John Adams, when the Adams Chronicles was on PBS here in the States. And that was the same deal. We do it during rehearsal time, and we have to really be efficient, because we do a dress rehearsal usually. I don't think we ever did a dress rehearsal, now that I think of it. At any rate.
Well, it showed, sir. It certainly showed.
Thank you so much.
In all the right ways.
It was fun. I'll tell you a funny story. It has nothing to do with the show with Chris.
Yeah.
I don't see Chris much. I'm basically a hermit. I'll be honest. I'm not antisocial. I'm just non-social. Okay. But I have a shack up in Rhode Island where I grew up, and I would go there once in a while. And we would stop by Chris's place in Connecticut once in a while. We stopped by one night, and everybody was excited because Abby's first appearance was going to be on SNL that night. And
Abby Elliott.
Yeah. Abby was very excited. And another time we went out to dinner, and we were sitting down, and a woman in maybe her 60s comes in holding a baby, and obviously the grandmother and petting the baby. And she comes over, and then we're all, oh, what a cute little baby. And Paula, Chris's wife, says, "Aren't you the governor?" And she says, "Yeah, it was the governor of Connecticut." It was Jody Rowe. Well, this is obviously the place to be in Southern Connecticut. Yes, but at any rate, yeah, that had nothing to do with anything.
Astute observation on the part of Chris Elliot. Well, you know what, and Chris is obviously a dream guest for the show here. For many reasons. But I got to tell you, as a Canadian, it was particularly delightful to see Schitt's Creek become something. The first time he talked about it, people were like, what the heck? Dave gave him a spot on the show, like gave him some panel on it and talking about Schitt's Creek. And
it was huge.
Like, well, in Canada, it was huge right away. And then watching the groundswell of it blow up down south, it was so wonderful for me as a fan of everything that you guys did, as an enthusiast of everything you guys did, to watch Chris be part of something at this stage of his career that went as big as it did. I was so happy for him.
Oh my God! I remember there was one of those remote Emmys because of the COVID.
Yes,
COVID won everything. You guys won everything. Schitt's Creek won everything. It was just insane. It was just another one. Here comes another one. But best supporting actor, best supporting actress. That was fine though. I mean, funny is funny. Sometimes it's too advanced or too crazy for people, and sometimes it walks that fine line, which I find Gene Levy and Catherine are really good at. Oh, yeah. You see all the Christopher Guest stuff. Yeah, it's right on the line. It's like you go a little bit this way with like Best in Show or Waiting for Guffman. If you go a little bit too far, it's just that's insane. Come on, he's right on the line. Right on the line.
It's so good, and I always found the Chris Guest stuff. I think about Mighty Wind, the folk singers movie. I find that has the same sensibility that much of the Letterman stuff has, and y'all seem like you're a family. Like I go SCTV and Letterman and all that. It all just feels very, very, very cohesive. It feels like you're all from the same world.
A lot of Canadians.
Yeah.
Really true. I mean, SCTV, Kids in the Hall. How about Kids in the Hall?
We got to do something to keep warm up here, Gerry. Might as well try and make each other laugh.
I know. No, it is interesting that some, great musicians, Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. One of
Yeah,
my
well,
favorites, Blue Rodeo, that nobody seems to ever hear
oh
of.
my
But
God, that's
I love
crazy that you mentioned Blue
Yeah,
Rodeo on here. That's fantastic.
yeah, they're great. I used to suggest a lot of stuff for the load-in music for the show,
Yep.
and we had at least one Blue Rodeo thing I got on, which was Florida.
Yeah.
I remember Land of Endless Malls. I thought for the longest time it was Land of Endless Mauve, like the color. I thought, I've been to Florida. I didn't notice that color particularly. No, it was Endless Malls, of course. That's a great song. That's one of my favorite songs.
Blue Rodeo is phenomenal. And they were one of those bands, like, again, smaller cities in Canada. We saw them show up and play to 150 seat rooms all the time.
I
Like the
know.
guys.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great feeling. Then you feel a little bit like, oh, come on, they're mine. No, you can't have them now. No, come on. Where were you? Where were you 10 years ago when they needed their rent? But
Oh my God, Gerry, it's like you're a professional, and segue right back into the Letterman stuff, just like a David Letterman lane change on the Parkway.
hello.
Because you saw that. You saw people who, like, when late night was really at its most experimental, you saw it essentially like a cult. And the people who would show up would send mail in, all of that, early adopters of the interesting and the askew of what you presented.
Yeah.
And then like an indie band that signs with a big label,
Yeah.
you watched
Sure.
it blow up, and you watch Dave become the megastar right in front of you. When that was happening, when you're going from the experimental stuff, the shows, the 360 shows, and the shows on the airplane, that kind of stuff, and suddenly the groundswell is happening, and for a while, and no offense to Johnny Carson whatsoever, I mean, the reverence I feel for Johnny, I wish, like, the reason I'm doing this show, one of the reasons, is because I don't want to happen to you guys what's happened to Johnny. I cannot believe that my 25-year-old kids don't know who Johnny Carson is.
Yeah.
So when I say this next statement, I'm disclaiming it because of the reverence I do feel for Johnny, as well. But at the end of the day, the late 80s, you guys were the hottest late night show out there. You were, even when Arsenio showed up and all, you guys were the coolest show. And you got to see that transition from the indie to the stadiums. Did it change the staff very much? Did you guys know, or were you in a bubble while all of that was happening?
No, we noticed there'll be, the articles and Dave on the cover of Rolling Stone and stuff like that, which wasn't happening when we were just more the morning show, which was pretty much ignored. Although Merrill had the idea of small town news, but I sort of had to get tons of these small town papers. And I remember one, this really tickled me, where it was a review of the morning show in a small town in like Iowa, Illinois, which was very odd. And the headline, I still remember: the David Letterman Show is like garbage. It stinks. It's like, oh, well, thanks for clarifying. I thought maybe it was picked up once a week by the municipality. Oh, you mean that's the point of the analogy. Thank you so much, sir. It stinks.
Oh,
it is amazing. I mean, some people would actively offended by it.
That writer is still around, by the way. They're actively writing comments on YouTube, and hopefully they find our show soon. And that would it
is funny how people just really enjoy doing that.
They enjoy shitting on things. Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I remember there was a really negative article in TV Guide, maybe from the morning show, about the morning, maybe in the early days of late night. And I just remember Dave saying, "God, I wish people realize how hard this shit is to do." I mean, and it really is. And David especially, if you saw the volumes of material that he went through every day for the joke, for the opening monologue, we had a monologue rehearsal. He would go through many, many, many jokes, and he would pick 12 maybe, and then cut that down sometimes before air. The top 10 list, just the topics alone, was overwhelming. Yeah. Then it has viewer mail. You get a viewer mail packet every day where some intern has decided this might yield the best response. Yeah. And so it's pack a letter. You can write stuff to that. And then you're going to have to get produced. It is a lot of work.
Absolutely.
You know, and I remember David, this is no secret, when the morning show was canceled, he really thought that was it.
Yeah.
He said, you know, they don't give somebody a network show that bombs right away and then give them another one, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it turned
and
out,
we had Jeff
turned out
Altman on, and he talked
turned-
about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no,
there.
that's fine. I had nothing more to say.
Okay.
I was just moving my mouth. You know, editing. I used to edit one show a week. The second show, I would take on Thursdays. We did two shows. Thursdays was a hell day for me because I would be writing. Yeah. I would often appear on one of the two shows, and then after the first show, I would go down and edit that show for broadcast that night. And the second show, they could edit at their leisure on Friday. So anyway, that was hell night going down there. And sometimes it was very hard to get a nice clean edit. Yep. And one of the things I had to sit through was I get in early on Thursdays and I would make the coffee, and it was pre-Keurig. It was an old-fashioned one.
Sure.
And one time as anyone would, I forgot to put the pot under the water thing. So it went all over the kitchen in the writer's kitchen. We've all done that.
Sure.
So of course that had to go into the edit. That had to be on the show that night. And I had to make sure that it was done correctly. Dave talking about it at great length. I was anonymous, so he did say, what writer? Right. I love blind items like that. Like, what writer? 6'4", 240-pound writer. Blah, 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 you know. At any rate. Enough about me. By the way, before I forget, I don't know if any of your people have brought props. This is a prize prop from the morning show. One of Meryl's ideas for a product. Oh, can I go big on this?
You do whatever you want. Oh my God.
Ricky's cow paste. I don't know. Are you seeing that backwards?
No, I see it. Well, we can talk again. We see it frontwards. Absolutely.
I'm seeing it backwards. It's Winky's cow paste. It's a product for to paste cows. But at any rate.
Okay. Oh God. So many questions, so many places I can go. Did you keep very much from any of the shows? Like that's great. That's amazing that you have that. That's unbelievable. Is there anything else that you have?
Let me see. I'm looking around I have this. Jill Lederman, who was a writer's, I don't know what her title was. She was more than a writer's assistant. She was probably a producer. She went to LA one time, LA trip, and brought this back, this Hollywood hat, which I wore just randomly whenever I made appearances.
I remember that on the show. Yeah, absolutely.
Now this is one of my proudest achievements. We had Giuliani on the show.
Yep.
Before he turned to the dark, before he became Darth Vader.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy took an interesting evolution.
Yeah. and you know, after 9/11, we were at sea. Do we go back on? Is it going to look crass to go back too soon, too late? And then Giuliani came out and said, I want New Yorkers to go back to the David lives. I want to go shopping, go to the theater, go to work, go to the office. You can't live in fear. So David said, that's it. We're going back. So we went back. And a little bit after, I forget how long after that, when he was still not crazy, we had Giuliani on, and we wanted a comedy thing for him because we got, sometimes we do. So we want to get a new slogan for New York. Like, I love New York is played out, where we want to get a new one for New York. So I was doing a lot of other things. I just suggested as a joke, thinking you'd never pick it, we can kick your city's ass. And and of course the audience picked it, and Giuliani picked it. Giuliani liked it, of course.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And the next day, the front page of the New York Daily News was this.
Oh, that's rad.
And then I'm walking down Broadway on the way to the theater, and I go by this tourist place, and I see that pin, which of course I wear to all occasions like graduations and baptisms and the like. I'm trying to think about anything else. I have stuff around.
That's what you guys did though. Like, and I think it's so, 9/11, of course, absolute, that moment where Dave came and literally led the nation. And
It was good.
again, I just, and it was from, we had Tommy on here and he talked about it, and we've talked about that moment. We're going to talk about it a lot throughout the lifespan of this show, which hopefully goes far beyond today. And we're going to talk a lot about that. Just the idea. And I said this to him, I'm a Canadian living on the west coast of Canada. Okay.
I know.
And I was waiting for that moment. I was waiting for Dave. I was waiting for that leadership, because we were in disarray, and it's crazy in the fact that this broadcaster, and again, that's why he's not an entertainer, not a comedian, he's a broadcaster.
Yeah, that's true.
Every bit for me, I'm a Gen X kid. My Walter Cronkite, he is. I'm not going to trust just the most trusted newsman out there. I'm not going to trust Brokaw. Rather, I need a little bit of cynicism. I need a little bit of commentary. I need a little bit of distrust into everything. And that's what Dave kind of brought to the table. Obviously, by that point, he had evolved to the point where he was more powerful in that sense, because at that time in the Late Show, and I don't know if there was one other person who could lead not just the nation, but nations, whoever was on the other side of that camera. I talked to Tommy about, and I want to ask you about this. You were still there. I mean, you guys were going to work. You were still writing jokes every day. Is there a period in time where more jokes were written that were never told? I mean,
as I remember, we had a lot of meetings about this, obviously.
Yeah.
What are we going to have? We're going to have music. And they decided on, I think, Nancy Griffith, Good Night, New York. And from that point on, the opening announce was from the greatest New York, the greatest city in the world. Yep. It used to be New York, the home of more rats and blah, blah, blah. And nothing cynical anymore. For a while, it's greatest city in the world because we took a gut punch. We just took a gut punch.
Absolutely. Great place for humor.
And we were real careful. The jokes had to be kind of generic and observational kind of stuff. And a lot of it, we did old stuff. Mm-hmm. We did old, as I remember, like old remotes and stuff just to fill in because they were kind of not going to trigger any memories. But I'm telling you, it was heartbreaking. I used to walk up to the Port Authority bus terminal. There were literally thousands of faces on walls. Mm-hmm. People, have you seen this person? Heartbreak, just heartbreak.
Yeah.
And Dave handled it so well. The only time I've ever gone up to the office after the show and said, "That was a great show. You were great." And he really was. I mean, that opening at home base couldn't have been better.
Every night, absolutely.
Note perfect.
It was note perfect. There's no better way to describe it. Every year at 9/11, I watch that show. Yeah. I've got it sitting on my computer every year. Now, that's how I remember it, because I can remember going back, and it is fascinating. I don't know if you've watched the whole show, with any degree of recency, but
no, I can't watch it. No, I can't.
I understand. Yeah. If you get back to that place where you can, watching the interview with Dan Rather is fascinating, because he talks about things like, and I think about the U.S. leaving Afghanistan last year, and he talked about in that interview, they're testing us right now. Will America have the stomach for this? And the questions that the conversation that they had, to me, it's nothing short of fascinating. And I think maybe the only joke Dave said, thank God Regis is here, so we have something to laugh about.
Yeah, that's true.
Love that joke. Love that line. That's how I can go right back to that moment, sitting on my couch watching it. It was on the DVR, but no, I watched that sucker. I watched the East Coast feed, so it was not, your time. So I got it a few hours earlier, and it, you guys helped lead people back from, one of the greatest, Don Giller has a word for this. It's not a tragedy. It's a, it's this word. It's escaping me right now.
It's an attack. It's an outrage. It's an assault.
Absolutely.
And I know. And it was strange. It was a very strange and terrible period. And people really stepped up. Yeah. And Dave, and now, I'm sure there's a play on Broadway. It's been running forever called "Come From Away," about how kind Canadians were.
Oh
to
yeah.
the flight that was diverted up to Newfoundland, I guess. Was it
Yep.
Cape Breton? Yeah, yeah. I
An
don't go to
atrocity.
Broadway because
That's what Don called it. He called it
atrocity.
an
Yeah, absolutely,
atrocity. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Innocent people, you know. Well, I live in a town that's maybe 10 miles from Midtown Manhattan, and
Yep.
New Jersey had a lot of casualties. I mean, every single school in this area, one or two parents that perished, just gone
Yeah.
like that. Boom. I know. And
And
how do
I
you
think
explain that to it? How do you explain that to your kid? It's just like, well, they don't like us because women go to school and they wear shirt, they don't cover their faces.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's, and I think about the parallels of the late night show, what you guys are meant to do, and what you actually do when world events like this happen. And back then, right now, anytime any sort of event happens, the late night shows seem to politicize it, or come from a certain slant or whatever. You guys, and going back to when Johnny hosted the Tonight Show, and these world events happened, and he would change up the format and talk about some of these things, in a different light, and it's so interesting how you guys at that point were trying to stay as independent as possible, yet at the same time have commentary and try and find ways to entertain people
Yeah.
during times like that. I mean, that's got to be the hardest time to write for that show that there is, I would
Oh
think.
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. And it's hard to know exactly what point you gradually can go back to making fun of topical events and
Yeah.
things like that. And yet it's intuitive, I guess, and you hope you get it right. And you're not alone. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people thinking about this with you, and knowing the sensibility of the show and knowing what the nation is sort of all feeling at once.
Yeah.
And you go by that. That's all you can do.
I ask, this is a, believe it or not, everybody, we can segue here. We can do it. This is big time. This is a big time program. We can do it. And I had Tommy Ruprecht on a while back, and we talked about this. And I had asked him one of the things that he was proud of, that he contributed to the show, that he was a big part of. So that's the question for you. There's where your brain can start spinning while I kind of finish it off. One of the things that he said was great moments in presidential speeches, which was the beautiful George Bush compilations, where it was just so perfectly edited. It showed a couple speeches from the past,
Yeah.
and then something George Bush was doing, and he talked about actually the first time after 9/11 that he was allowed to do another one where he was allowed to make fun of President Bush, I should say. I forget what he did. He walked into a wall or did something, and okay, fine, you can go ahead and do that. That segment on the channel now, Walter and Company, they have a nice, beautiful, great moments in presidential history, so people can go back and they can watch that. We're going to talk about some of your highlights as well from being on the show, because there's a lot of stuff out there that people can now go back and revisit and enjoy. What are some of the things that, I mean, it's a long career, so things that come to mind first? Hopefully we get you on here again and we can talk about some of the deeper cuts, but what are some of the things that made the show, either late night or late show, that you were kind of the captain of, and got on there and turned out the way that you wanted them to?
Let me see. I always wrote jokes. I wrote jokes and answers to viewer mail letters. And I guess one of my favorite viewer mail letters, I forget, maybe it wasn't even that, but it was an intro. And Dave introduced me, and I came out in a Batman suit, and I started, and they said, "So what's new, Gerry?" I said, "Oh, well, we have a nice Labrador, black lab now in the family." And I had some pictures I took out and showed them the pictures of a black lab romping in the leaves out in the backyard.
And you're the Adam West Batman. That's who you were.
Yeah.
You were the Adam West Batman. It was fantastic. Yep.
I didn't have a plastic six pack like Clooney or whatever. And I just go rambling on about the dog and what he likes to eat and how the kids love him and he's great with the kids. And he goes, why are you dressed like Batman? He goes, oh, that, yeah. I was very upset when I found out about some of the casting of the new movie. They've got Jack Nicklaus as the Joker. Now, he's a great golfer, but it makes no sense. I mean, this is his first acting job, I think, isn't it? I mean, I think I'm surprised there hasn't been more backlash about that, you know? And well, it's actually Jack Nicholson. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that makes a lot more sense because he's anyway. And here's a little footnote.
Issue resolved.
Little footnote, no problem. A little footnote, no pun intended. There had been something happening on stage right before that.
Yeah.
Where a lot of glass got smashed.
Yeah.
And I was wearing like a onesie with no shoes. And so I did that whole thing with bleeding feet.
And then Bruce Willis took it and made a hit movie out of it called Die Hard. And
I know.
I didn't see your name in the credits there. Another robbery.
I got nothing. Let me see things I like. I remember. This was just an ad lib, sort of. I think it was Dynasty was on, and maybe she was in some special, but Joan Collins was in the news, and Dave said something. It was her birthday.
Yep.
And she was probably turning 50, and so I said, Dave said, congratulations, happy birthday to Joan Collins, who today is now 70 years old. Okay, so anyway, her people, give me the phone. Where's the phone? So anyway, in makeup, I was talking about it. I said, why don't you say this? He goes, okay. So he went out and said, by the way, I want to have an apology. Yesterday, I said that Joan Collins was 70 years old. Miss Collins, it turns out, is 70 years young. And it did not appease her people.
Yeah, well, it killed with a 46-year-old guy 30 years later, or however long it is right now in this room. So that holds up like a motherfucker. Yeah. I love that whole what you just said there, because okay, here's a list of the people that you have quote unquote portrayed, and it's by no means complete. You have come out on stage being billed as Paris Hilton, Hillary Clinton, Michael Jackson, Pete Rose, Rael, a man who can clone people, Regis Karl Rove, Peyton Manning, Batman, and many others. And there's so many moments that you could talk about being in front of the camera. But I just love that. What are you proud of, Gerry? Oh, it's this moment where I went to Dave in makeup and gave them this throwaway line. And I just, this is the reason why we do this show. It's not about Dave, it's about Dave and Company. Equally, in fact, even more so, because Dave will, of course, never come on this show. It's more about what you guys did in all to support him. He was the figurehead. He was the head. He is the most talented broadcaster in history. There's no question. But behind him was this amazing family, many of which stayed together decades. And some came and went on to amazing careers because of being part of that family. And it's those moments that I feel are the most endearing and the ones that we want to dig for, because at the end of the day, I had one little encounter with Dave at a Q&A where I was a brat, and I made him laugh, and it's one of the greatest moments of my life. I made David Letterman fucking laugh. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and you had those little moments, very small group of people that could have moments like what you just described, and you are one of those people that had them as your daily life.
Yeah. One thing I like to do in the monologue, I would hand in like 7. I was working part for a while there for reasons too complicated political to go into. Our talent department was depleted by one person.
Okay.
And it may have had something to do with alcohol. I don't know. Go on. Yep. And I was filling in halftime talent, halftime writing.
Okay.
So I would hand in a bunch of jokes in the morning, and if any news, a bunch of jokes in the afternoon. Then I would research the guest I had that afternoon, or whatever, pre-interview somebody, whatever.
Yep.
And I used to put in like really filthy jokes that Dave would never do, obvious, just to make him laugh. And I remember one of them was,
that's awesome.
Now this just in from the American Medical Association, beware of any doctor who takes your temperature with his dick. And okay, fine. And then I'm standing over by the blue door during the monologue, and Dave goes, oh, by the way, this in from the American Medical Association. Now, beware of any doctor who tries to take your temperature with his finger. Freud would say displacement upwards, but yeah, that's true. It's true. I did a lot of stuff like that.
Oh,
I just
see,
remember Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth was in L.A. and I forget why. At any rate, she was, and she was in a she was in a jacuzzi with a bunch of people,
yeah.
and no, she was in a pool with a bunch of people, and someone broke wind, and the Queen said, "Okay, who's the fucking Evinrude?" But he didn't. He
And
didn't even
every
do it.
fisherman in America would have done this.
We didn't. He didn't even make a tailored version of that.
Well, yeah. Oh, I love. That's very, very cool. The idea that you guys would try and break Dave or give him a little bit of joy in his day, because as the narrative says, sometimes he might have been a stressful guy.
Yeah, just because somebody is famous and rich, it doesn't mean he's not insecure. It really doesn't. I mean, everybody's insecure. Everybody's insecure about different things. But you've had your first boat shot out from under you.
Yep.
Why would you think that anyone would build you another expensive boat?
Yep.
And they did. And Fred Silverman gave him a shot at the again, and he's ever grateful to him. And some people are very supportive. Some of the executives are very supportive. Some of them, not. Some of the censors were much more on the case than others. Like I just got a message from, I guess, Zoom. I don't know what it means. I remember we had Connie Chung on the show.
Yeah.
Dave loved Connie Chung. We even did the
Absolutely.
plane. If you remember, the plane had the
Yep.
plane. Anyway, so we said, do you have any? We were doing a lot of human tricks. Is there anything you can do that most people can't do? And she said, I can crack walnuts with my bare hands. I said, okay, I can see that. So we did that in rehearsal. She said that, and I got a call. I guess I was handling her. I got a call from Standards and Practices. Can she really do that? I said, she says so. He says, well, we're going to have to see her do it before we go to the show. I know. So anyway, it turns out the trick is you get 2 walnuts and you line them in one hand just perfectly so.
Yeah.
And you squeeze it. The seams are against the seams and they crack open.
It's a leverage trick more than a strength trick. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And we had a great censor, Jay, I can't remember his last name, but very urbane, knew exactly what doing. And he just come to you if you're dealing with a comedian that day, say, so any problems with this guy? You say no. You would be honest with him because he trusted you. And usually it worked out fine, On the other hand, sometimes you would have a day off, and there was a woman in the Standards and Practices who I swear was just like Margaret Dumont in all the Groucho Marx movies. She just, fortunately, you could sort of just wing fast ones right by her.
Yeah. If it's too smart for her, then
she didn't know certain sexual terms, and it was just couldn't even get the bat around on some of them. Yeah, so that was fun. But anyway, I did that for a couple of years, and it was interesting to get a view of that side of the show because talent. The comedy is 20 minutes of the show. The talent is the other 24 minutes. And I remember the weirdest part was pre-interviewing people to find out if they had anecdotes that could carry the 10-minute segment. And
you were a minor. You were looking for stuff that could be,
absolutely.
And it's the highest level. Competition has never been more fierce. You guys are literally building a franchise that's going to take down or compete with the Tonight Show, which has never been done. You want, when the talent shows up, you want to make sure that you're hitting home runs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We actually had some guests. I guess it was Matt LeBlanc from Friends.
Yep.
Or I'm sorry, in Canadian, LeBlanc. And he was on I Don't Want the Police. And he was a guest on our show in the first segment. Yeah. And he, as soon as it was over, he rushed off stage. So what's going on? He goes, oh, I'm doing Conan right now. So we didn't know. So he was at I guess we might have been at CBS at that point. Went across town to and it was just like a 10-minute walk and we ran out of car. And I guess he did Conan that night, but it wasn't so bad because of two different time slots, but we try not to do that,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's Carter's books. Did you ever read Bill Carter's books? Did you kind of read the stuff that was going on around while this was happening?
I did read it, and I rode the elevator with him a few times, but he never interviewed me, which I took very personally. You
I
know,
take
whatever.
that hold on. I like, we're trying to get Carter on the show. I take that personally. Like, to
No,
me, you're one of those guys that should be interviewed.
Seriously, I had no inside knowledge. I never talked to that kind of stuff about that kind of stuff to Dave. I do remember the one detail from the book that struck me, and it didn't seem to bother anybody, was Jay hiding out in the closet listening to the conversation. It's like, seriously?
Yeah.
Seriously? You're okay with that? Let me tell you
I,
another thing while I'm still thinking of it is,
yes,
as we're
please.
desultory, is that the word for things when you jump around? Whatever.
Sure. It is now.
Yeah. We were during a break. We had George W. Bush on during a break. And during a break, camera's still rolling because, you know, who knows what's going to happen. Maria Pope was a segment producer on that, I guess. And she's been talking to him, leaning on for him. He takes off his glasses. I hope you can see this.
Yeah.
He takes off his glasses, takes his Maria's pashmina shawl, and does. Didn't even look at her. Didn't even look at her. And then puts the shawl back and puts his glasses back on. And it's like, I thought this is going to be on the news. This is the most arrogant, you know, entitled rich boy behavior ever recorded on film. This was pre-Trump. So, you know, what the hell? Nothing. I mean, I think we sent it out to, you know, people, outlets, and nothing ever happened.
Hold on a second. I got to call Tommy. Tommy, you missed a moment. There was a moment where great moments in presidential. You should have put, that is a.
Well, he didn't say a word, so theoretically it falls outside the parameters of Tommy's mandate.
Oh, right. Okay, of course.
He wrote a book. He wrote a book about Bush, in fact.
Tommy did.
Yeah.
How did that not come up while he was on? Okay,
I don't know.
Well, you got to get him on to plug the book.
He's very modest, and he also forgets. He probably doesn't remember he did it.
He is very modest. A lot of you guys, by the way, are very modest, just so you know. And I think it comes from the host down. I mean, it's so funny how so many of you seem to have this very similar disposition in many ways. You know, you're all very protective of each other, you know, it's very much like a family. You know, we'll fight and whatever, but don't you dare come in here and try and.
It's pretty true. Well, you're so vulnerable when you're putting stuff out.
Yep.
Basically to be judged. First of all, you hand it in to somebody, a head writer or Dave, and
sure.
Yes, no, yeah. And the rejection rate is brutal, as it has to be.
Yes.
If he's looking at 120, 150 jokes, not only you with 3 or 4 other people on staff, the faxers, as we call them, the two guys
Jim
in
and
LA,
Mike. Yep.
Who, by the way, created the first Bad Boys movie. I don't know if anyone knows this.
And ninjas who worked for Johnny Carson, by the way, as well.
Mulholland and Barry.
Yeah.
And he's not going to do 120 jokes, you know, even if everyone is fantastic. So he might bank one, you know, he might bank 1 or 2, although one of my favorite memories is I love Tony Mendez. He passed away a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And he would, if he liked the joke and Dave bumped it, he would always say, Dave, you're being very precipitous. And Dave would reconsider. Let me tell you a very funny Tony Mendez story.
Please.
This might be a little inside, but what the hell? I go into Dave's office one day. He said, guess who just called me? I said, I have no idea. He goes, Vice President Al Gore. I said, really? Yeah. He goes, yeah. He said, Dave, how many times have I been on the show? I said, well, you know, a few times, Mr. Vice President. He said, okay, I'd like you to do me a favor. I'm teaching a class at Columbia, and I'd like you to come and talk to answer questions from the students. And Dave said, yeah, sure. So he talked about it, thought about it, and he called Al Gore back and said, can I bring some of my people with me? And Al Gore said, sure. He said, and I'm thinking about bringing Tony Mendez, who's my Q card guy, and he's a Cuban exile. He's a refugee. His family fled Cuba, and he would like to come in full battle fatigues, like Fidel Castro. Is that a problem? And he said, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that, Dave. Yeah, that's okay. So anyway, we went and did it. It was fine.
You went and did it?
We were up there with Dave.
Oh, not with the fatigues, though. Tony didn't come dressed like that. Okay.
No, it was me. I guess it was me and Bill Shaft and a couple of, who else? Staff members, maybe Mary Barkley, maybe Giuliani, I don't remember. But anyway, I do remember this. One of Al Gore's staff members was with us, and there was Al and Dave were way up ahead, and he turns to us and says, "From this point on, I think we should probably refer to our bosses by code names." And then he said, "My boss's code name is," and it was something like Gargantua or something, who knows, something silly. And I thought, we're on a goddamn Ivy League campus in New York City. Why would I didn't say anything. I just thought, no, that's all right. Code names. What is this, playing some kind of game? Anyway, that's not why you're called. Oh, there was something I wanted to mention when we were talking about the pre-interviewing people and stuff.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to maintain this random nature of the broadcast. And
outstanding.
One time I got a call. Somebody said, Wilford Brimley would like to do the show. So you give him a call? So I gave him a call. And Mr. Brimley, yeah, okay, what do you want? I was wondering if you did the show, what would you like to talk about? He goes, how the hell do I know what I want to talk about at Tuesday next week, 5:30 p.m.? Do you know what the hell you want to talk about next Tuesday, 5:30 p.m.? And it's like, oh, okay. Well, so long. That was I hung up. It turns out he thought I was a logistics guy who was going to like book his airplane flight and book his hotel room, I guess. Anyway, that was my experience with that.
Okay, but when you think about Wilford Brimley, and for those who are a little bit young, you picture this cowboy looking kind of curmudgeon with the mustache and the gray hair and the glasses and the curmudgeon very definition. I mean, if you look in the dictionary, you might see a picture of Wilford Brimley. What the hell do you think I'm going to talk?
I know. Well, that was very strange. The pictures were very strange. Somebody once pitched the lead singer of Goodbye Stranger, Supertramp.
Yeah.
I said, well, okay, it would be a good as a guest, not as a musical guest. And I said, okay, well, what would he talk about? Angles. We need angles. He goes, well, this is interesting. He lives in Los Angeles and he rides a bike.
Whoa, that gives us something.
That's two segments. Yeah, I know. Really.
Tell us about LA now. Tell us about the bike.
Yeah, the pictures you would get from people were just like, they would love this guy. They would love this guy, showing absolutely no idea of Dave's sensibility.
Yeah.
It's like the kind of jokes people would submit in the packet trying to get a job, like about Dolly Parton's chest and stuff like that.
Sure.
Although to be fair, I once did write a joke about that, and Dave did it.
Do you remember it?
One of it. Dave would do this thing sometimes. He would have a marathon. He would say like 3 o'clock, I want to do nothing but heat jokes because it's really hot. Nothing but heat jokes. So all the writers would kick in.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm not proud of this, but he did it. It's so hot that Mickey Rooney is dating Dolly Parton just for the shade. And it's like, okay.
That's a great joke.
That's a Jackie Jan. It's like, hey, folks, come on, tip your waitress. Let's go.
That's a great joke. Well, especially Dolly Parton jokes were back in the day. I mean, they were that was the thing to joke about. It was every bit as joking about her as you would the president. Like it was very, very, very common. But that's a very clever take on that.
She was a great guest. Although she did refuse to kiss me once. We were doing a thing a bumper going to commercial. It was coming back, me and Dolly Parton sitting together chatting in the green room.
Yeah.
And I think Foley or somebody said, well, why don't you kiss? He goes, that's all right. Well, okay,
that's the greatest rejection ever. That's all right.
Yeah, that's good. It's not all right, Dolly. It's not all right, as it turns out. I'm a human being.
Damn it.
Anyway.
I've got a couple more that I want to throw at you. Actually, you know what? Darren Cox, who, by the way, not an adult film actor, oddly enough. Darren Cox is his real name. Darren, who was the first guest on our show, and he's got his own the Irritable Dad Syndrome podcast and whatnot. Big enthusiast, like I am, of everything you guys did. Actually, his ex-girlfriend had when I told him that I'm going to be talking to you, he got all really excited. And then I reminded him who you were. No, I'm just kidding. He really was I'm just, but
That's right. I use that for Zoom calls with the kids.
Oh, it's perfect. And thank you for bringing it here. This is great.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, you got to ask him about." I got a question. So I got a question from Darren here for you. But he opened it up by saying his ex-girlfriend got a letter read, and in viewer mail, and the result of that letter was you coming out dressed as a cicada.
Right.
That was the and so he mentioned 3 or 4 other things that you came out dressed up as and whatnot. So his question was this: was there ever anything where they got you to the 1 yard line, you're dressed up, the makeup, the whole 9 yards, you got your lines, but it was either too weird or too over the line, or it got cut, but there you are standing there in a Shrek uniform or a Shrek outfit? Did that ever happen?
No, it never did. I mean, because we could, it's like farmers using every part of the pig, you can't throw you really can't throw anything away. By the way, just side note.
Yes, sir.
Cicadas are on a 17-year life cycle. They come back in some parts of New Jersey. I've been in my in-laws' house. You step on them. There are so many, but at any rate.
Yep.
Sorry, Peter, if that's a problem. But anyway, okay, so I did it like 87 or whatever, the last time we were here.
Yeah.
And then after I retired, they came back 17 years later. Sue Hum remembered the costume. We still have the costume. Sue Hum is so good at this kind of stuff. We still have the costume. I came back and did it again 17 years later.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was in the green room like an idiot as a giant cicada. And I forget who the other guests were, but it was very awkward making conversation as a cicada. Really. And anyway.
Darren is going to be tickled pink that you brought that back. Sue Hum, actually, she and I are just connecting right now. She's on my, again, one of the dream list, on the dream list of guests. I cannot wait to talk to her, from everything from either O'Donnell's police uniforms, and she got to keep one, to, these things here, to the suits, Dave. I cannot wait to talk to Sue. And also a lot of on-screen appearances. For you, I don't know if there's a writer who has appeared on screen more than you throughout the run. I can't imagine that there is. Was it just, oh yeah, we'll put Gerry in that? Like, was it just kind of shorthand? Oh yeah, we'll get Gerry to do that. Or was some of that stuff that because you talk about how you how you wrote jokes, and that was the thing that you mostly did. Did you ever write yourself any of these segments, or was that always another writer that did that?
No, I wrote the Batman one. All the almost all the viewer mail stuff was Tommy Ruprecht or Lee Ellenberg.
Okay.
And I remember there was one, I still haven't forgiven Lee for this. There was one where I was like an Al-Qaeda guy, and I was being set up backstage like basically a Zoom call, Avant La Lettre. I went to grad school. It wasn't called that then, didn't have Zoom. But anyway, so I'm back there, and I'm supposed to say, Dave is saying, well, how can you say you're innocent? They found all this explosives in your apartment, whatever. And I had to say something like, oh, so a half a ton of tritetrahydroflat. I did it. I finally nailed it, in rehearsal. And I kept saying it over and over again. And just before I went on, first of all, Tommy Ruprecht would usually come up and go, Scottish play or Macbeth, which is bad luck for actors to hear Macbeth before they go on. And then Lee Ellenberg said during rehearsal, you're going to blow it. You are so going to blow it. And I did it perfectly over and over and over again. And it goes on today. It says, well, what about this? I go, yeah, I have a half a ton of hydrohobos. I was going to say goddamn Ellenberg, but can't really say that. Anyway, by the way, this is a little footnote. It has nothing to do with anything, but you did the first dick joke about Darren Cox's name. I was in San Francisco when Nixon, was it one of the Nixons? Tricia Nixon married Ed Cox.
Yep.
And a lot of the gay performers were making jokes about that.
Absolutely. Oh no, Darren's going to be delighted when he hears this. I'm not even going to let him know. I'm just going to make sure he watches, and he'll be delighted by this. A couple other things I want to bring up before, because I want to be as well, you know, I want to pretend that I care about your time. Really, at the end of the day, I would sit here and do this all day. This
sweet.
is so much fun for me, and I'm having a blast talking to you. This is an honor.
Good. Me too. I'm enjoying this too, bro.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate hearing that. Oh shit, we got to do a commercial. Okay. And there's nothing better that we got one sponsor on this show. And there's nothing better than when I suddenly bring an unwitting guest into a commercial. The Letterman podcast, we have one sponsor. The Letterman podcast is brought to you by the Hello Deli. Rupert G and the Hello Deli. It is not a joke. He is the only sponsor of this show. If you are in the New York area and you need a good place to eat, well, first off, you know, go to the Hello Deli, nestled within the womb of the Ed Sullivan Theater. But more so, if you have ever looked for Late Show with David Letterman merchandise, like this mug or t-shirts or even pictures of Rupert, because you love Rupert so much because he was on screen almost as many times as Gerry Mulligan, go to hello-deli.com and you can get Late Show with David Letterman merchandise still. And if you ask him very nicely, Rupert takes these things and he packs them lovingly himself, him or May, but usually it's him. And if you ask him really nicely, he might actually add onions to your order of t-shirts or coffee mugs. So the Hello Deli, we thank you very much for everything that you guys do for us. And
that's sweet. Yeah,
there you go.
That stuff he did when Dave was in his ear going into McDonald's, just the best. It was
perfect
so comedy.
Good.
Perfect comedy they wouldn't do on any other show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't imagine any other show doing that.
Did you ever write on any of those remotes or segments, or were you basically the stuff that happened in-house?
No, basically I didn't do any of the Rupert stuff. I don't know who wrote the quote. You know, a lot of that stuff is Dave on the spur of the moment saying, ask him if he can, you know, and that was on the spur of the moment. We did a lot of stuff. This is most of the morning show, I think.
Yeah.
Where Dave would shoot a remote on the streets of New York when he could still do that without getting a crowd. And then you would have a few minutes left over, crew time, and Hal Gurney was there. And I think Hal Gurney came up with this idea, Mr. Curious, where you go up to people and you say, excuse me, so what's in the bag? And some of them would be like, well, because they may have had contraband in the bag or whatever. They may have been not wanting to be, and they have to sign a release.
Yep.
So if there's, you know, they're not going to sign the release. What's the point? Just move on.
Yep.
But yeah, we did a lot of those. And those were just pure Dave. Just like, what's the bag? Okay, yeah. We're going to do with that. Yeah, you like that? Okay, good. Dave was really good working audiences, you know. He did that. He used to host at the Comedy Store, and he was really, really good at that. Really good at that.
Well, again, go back to the fact that, you know, when he talks about stand-up, he goes, I knew I'd have to do it. Like, it's a discipline. Like, I've done stand-up a handful of times in the last year since COVID has stopped, because I understand the idea of wanting to take the skill and put it under your belt. It's a discipline that you're learning. But at the end of the day, what would I rather see? Yeah, I'd rather see Dave do a couple jokes here and there and then bring somebody out and then do the follow-up after that. Like, he is a natural broadcaster. That's his deal. Did it take you a long time to get his voice? No,
it didn't, because we're kind of similar. And you find out after you submit a few jokes that are just off the radar for him. Yeah. Well, he's not going to do that joke. And I mean, I knew pretty much from seeing him. I saw him perform long before I wrote for him. You know, I know he's not going to do this kind of joke. He's going to do a lot of just really subtle kind of sarcasm. Like, I remember he said something like, well, I see where McDonald's is going to start offering breakfast. Well, that's a dream come true. And it's all attitude. Or he used to do a thing. Well, you know, there's some pet food that advertises not a speck of cereal. My dog drinks out of the toilet. He doesn't care about a speck in the toilet, a speck of cereal in his food.
Yeah, he'll be okay with a Cheerio.
Yeah, stuff like that. That was it.
The attitude, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that it's really hard. It's really easy to take, you know, and I don't want to talk, you know, too much about Leno, but Leno was a joke teller that you could take some of those jokes and very easily relay them around the office the next day. Dave, I don't know how many times when I was growing up that I would try and take a moment that was hysterical in my head and my heart and try and translate it to my mother, to my friends at school, to whoever, and it just would not work because Dave is so invaluable in how he presented that material and how it would be a home run, but it just, you couldn't replicate it.
No, absolutely. Attitude is everything. And then it's like you see in sitcoms, you see this too, where you get to know the character so well that when a certain thing happens, all the comedy is from the action has to happen.
Yes.
I mean, a classic one, Archie Bunker.
Yep.
Sammy Davis Jr. shows up at the house. Even if, you know about that. Or the Seinfeld thing when somebody, this is going to play really well with Gerry. He's really going to love this kind of thing. And that's what you don't get as a stand-up too much. Because you have to establish a persona. If you're just starting out, you don't have a persona yet. People don't know you yet. Jack Benny, I mean, think of it, Jack Benny's persona was so strong.
Yep.
One of his funniest jokes on the radio, he didn't say a thing. When he's a bad guy comes up to him and says, "Your money or your life?" And there's a long pause. He goes, "Your money or your life?" And Jack Benny says, I'm thinking. Meaningless unless you've heard, the reputation that Jack, who apparently in private life is a very generous person, ironically. But at any rate.
Were you around when the end of the Late Show happened for the run? They brought back Steve O'Donnell a little bit for the end of the run. Were you there at all?
I went to the rap party afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't think, did I go to the taping? I don't know if I went to the taping. I went to the party. The party was at Museum of Modern Art. Pretty classy.
I've heard a lot about this party. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't. We just went,
Yeah.
My wife's not a showbiz type. The only time she was really impressed was at a Christmas party when she actually saw David Hasselhoff live.
Oh, there we go.
And I got to admit, he didn't do much for me, but sometimes you do see a person, and I remember in the green room, just Kirk Douglas, for some reason, all eyes were on Kirk Douglas. Even if you didn't know who he was, if this was your first experience, there was something about him. Bob Dylan, same way. We had Dylan on the show, my idol, my favorite musician of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time he was on the show, during rehearsal, he's sitting at home base, just relaxing. And I go to Dave. I said, "Dave, you want to meet Dave? You want to meet Bob before the show?" Because he usually didn't like to do that. He liked to be fresh with a new guest. He said, "Yeah, I would." So he came out and introduced him. And Dave sits in the other guest chair. They're talking, and I told him this. So he said, "I understand your son's here with you," because he brought Jesse with him. And Jesse, and I'm not lying, Jesse is standing about 2 feet away. And Dylan goes, "Yeah, he's somewhere, man. I don't know. He's somewhere." I don't know what that meant. I don't know if he didn't want to. He wanted to keep Jesse out of the. I don't know what it was. I have no idea what it did. That was Bob Dylan.
Wow.
I don't know.
You're talking about people who the charisma that they have, whatever it is, whatever that it factor is, it just emulates and they can just stand there. It's funny that you mentioned David Hasselhoff as being one of the people. He is an extreme. I've heard people who have met him before, extremely impressive. And just, you walk in and like you say, all eyes are on that person. Another guy who is definitely like that, and Dave's idol, of course, is Johnny Carson. I can't let this go without asking. I think about the night that Johnny came over and announced on your show that he was leaving, and people didn't even understand really. He came right from the upfronts and announced it to the world. Were you on the stage when that happened? Did you have any other encounters with Johnny along the way?
I think I was probably we used to hang out in the makeup room, which in retrospect is just insane because we watch people getting the makeup, which most women guests especially don't want to see. But at any rate, I would say hi to Johnny when he'd be on the show. But here's a story, a Johnny Carson story. We used to go out to the Emmys when we got nominated for Emmys. They were very generous. I don't know if the show or NBC staff, anybody basically who wanted to come would come.
Yep.
So Dave would host a dinner the night before at some nice restaurant in LA. So one night, the staff dinner was at Granita, which was a Wolfgang Puck place in Malibu. Very nice, upscale restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And there were maybe, I don't know, 40 people there. And he had reservations, 40 people. And Johnny Carson, who lived nearby, had no idea we were there, came in and just, hey. He came over and Dave asked him to sit and join him. So we joined him. Go ahead, like 4 days later, Johnny gets a call from his accountant and says, did you spend $30,000 at Granita on a Saturday night? And he goes, no, I had Dave at the table and 3 other people at the table. Well, apparently he had his entire staff there. And and the waiter was under the understanding you wanted to pick up the tab for the entire room. Now, it was very sweet of him. He didn't contest it or anything. But anyway, I'm not sure that's a drop in the bucket to Johnny, but
Sure. But a delightful story, and I mean, I've heard it told a few different places. Peter LaSalle told that his rendition of that story on the tribute show. That I guess you would have been gone by the tribute show, yeah, because you left in 2004, right? Johnny passed in 2005.
Yes, that's true. Peter LaSalle was great. Peter LaSalle, very interesting guy, very nice guy, very nice guy, and a perfect person for Dave to deal with, because he could, very comforting presence and knowledgeable, been around forever. And,
not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination, but kindness being the paramount. Yeah,
absolutely.
I am so grateful for this. I'm gonna throw a real curveball into this. Were you around the night that Dave's microphone got stolen? Do you remember that?
No,
you don't remember that at all? You don't remember that at all? Okay.
The only one thing I do remember along that line was Dave was after the monologue. Dave was at home base one night.
Yep.
And somebody came out from the Blue Doors with a suitcase, a briefcase, and sat down.
Yep.
And we stopped this. Who knew what he was? They stopped the show. Security, Marty Wall, the big security guy, comes over and escorts him out. He was just a pretty crazy guy. Didn't have any malintentions, but
really,
yeah.
There wasn't a bit. It was a guy who came through the Blue Doors and sat down.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And
I don't know how he got by, unless he looked like he was as unimpressive looking as an NBC executive. So I'm guessing that's how they got. That's how they got through there.
I asked if you kept up with the show after you left. Obviously, you would make appearances and things like that. Have you watched any of Dave's stuff post retirement? Have you watched My Next Guest or any of that stuff?
Oh yeah, I watched My Next Guest, sure. And
me too.
Very glad Mary Barkley's producing. Gets a producer credit, which is good. So might be up for an Emmy here. Yeah.
Oh, I sure hope so. I love watching the evolution of Dave. It's interesting hosting this show. One of the things I wasn't prepared for is how that there are a lot of enthusiasts who really have cemented themselves in certain parts of Dave's eras, and loved late night, didn't like Late Show, don't like My Next Guest at all, or some who are exactly the opposite.
Right, sure.
I like My Next Guest a lot now because Dave's actually being a little bit more vulnerable and it's longer and all this sort of stuff. I just love the entire evolution, and I love watching it that way. One of the things I love watching are Don Giller's compilations.
Unbelievable.
Oh, they're so good. They're so good. And I hope that there are ways that we can incorporate this style back into all the stuff that Walter and company are doing. Phenomenal stuff. But how they show the evolution, his talk show one, where it shows Dave doing talk show hosts from the very beginning right till the end, and you get to watch. Oh yeah. Oh, beyond.
Can I tell you how I met the Dons?
Yeah, please.
I was walking up 53rd Street toward Hello Deli, probably, which is, by the way, a place you really should visit if you're in New York.
I totally agree.
No, it is. I love those guys. Are great in food.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic.
A guy comes up to me. I had no idea who it was. It has a VHS tape. He says, "This is the tape of Dave appearing on Tom Snyder's show. You're in the third row, second from the aisle." By the way, I'm Don Giller, but people call me the Dons.
Yeah.
And that was it.
The mind encyclopedia is just that man has is so impressive, and he has extended so much grace to us, and he fact checks us, and
he's amazing. He's amazing.
So happy. Yeah.
My daughter was, I mean, this happens all the time. My daughter was there with a boyfriend, and she told him about how she'd appeared on the show.
Yep.
And everybody was the cutest girl ever. But at any rate, he hadn't seen it, and I couldn't find the VCR. So I texted the Dons.
Yep.
And 5 minutes later, he said, "Here's the link."
It's crazy how quick he is at that. And these compilations that he would put up were so, my wife is one of the best cooks in the world. I always say she cooks with love, and you can feel it. You can
Yeah.
just, and Don would put these up with so much love and care, and he would, they'd have very, very minimalist in the sense of what would be in between each clip, but then a clip of stuff that didn't make the air would be there. It'd be like a B-side that you don't expect any, no pomp or circumstance, no fanfare. If you're watching and you're paying attention, you see something, it's, oh my gosh, look at this little moment that's in there as well. And he just peppers these compilations with that. I love the evolution. Like I said, that talk show one is really good because you see a young Dave where interviewing wasn't his his paramount skill. And then you go to the end of that compilation, or maybe part 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and you see that he is a superior interviewer now. You mentioned Tom Snyder. That's where my next guest kind of is now, with some video flourishes here and there, but Dave's doing long form, and I love it so much. One of the ways that I like to end these episodes is by asking folks like yourself, if there were 3 people you would like to see Dave interview on the next season of My Next Guest, pop culture, all of that stuff, who cares about any of that? Throw all of that out there. If there's 3 people that you would like to see Dave do a long form conversation with, who would they be?
Wow. I think Elvis Costello, just because he's great. He's a great guest, great interview.
Great answer.
Somebody, maybe some writer that, well, I don't know if Thomas Berger's even still alive, but I remember turning Dave on to Thomas Berger, who wrote a lot of great novels. Very, very funny guy.
Yeah.
If he's alive, well, I guess it doesn't have to be alive. These things.
No, we do these dead or alive. Actually, we've had folks.
And Steve Allen, because Steve Allen was often cited as one of the forefathers of the kind of stuff Dave's doing. Ernie Kovacs also, but I remember watching the Westinghouse Steve Allen show all the time. He would do stuff at the farmers market in LA. They would close off the street. They would have weird kind of stuff that was very, very prescient in terms of what Dave was going to be doing, 30, 40 years later. And I remember when Steve Allen was on the show, walking around before the show and getting ready to go to makeup, and he's recording, he's going, idea for a song. And he's talking to the thing. And I remember talking to Jack Parr. This is when I talked to him. Might have been an article. I was talking to Jack Parr for pre-interview, and he was on his front porch in Connecticut. He said, I was just here drinking gin and tonic. It's nice. Wow. And I mentioned Steve Allen and something like that. How about the fact that he's such a big, prolific songwriter? And he said, yeah, he says he's written 3,000 songs. Name 2. Well, I know. Anyway, on that bitter note,
no, it's all amazing. And I did my very, very best to avoid talking about Andy Kaufman, because I love Andy Kaufman so much, but you've talked about him a lot. I've
talked about him a lot. I have not talked about the Gerry Law because I didn't know it. I don't think Dave knew it. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. All I know is, having lived in the South for many years, if you tell a real tough guy, if you whisper in his ear, you're an asshole, things will ensue.
Sure.
And I think that's what happened. I think he just knew how to trigger him. I don't think they had to rehearse it. I mean, I think he would have been more prepared to fall down and stuff. And I don't know. I just don't think he did. I think he knew the trigger. Yeah. He pulled the trigger. And my favorite part is 2 things. Marty Wall, the big beefy security guy hustling over, and Dave saying something like, well, I think you can say some of those words on TV. Well, I don't think you can say all those words on TV. By the way, here's a footnote.
Please.
Andy Kaufman once declared himself in LA. It's a bit he did at the Comedy Store, I guess, regularly. The intergender wrestling champion.
Yes, sir.
One of the women he wrestled once was Meryl Marco. Good night.
I didn't know that.
I know. It's true.
Oh my God. I'm so grateful you just told me that. I have well, we can talk about this maybe off camera. I have a history in the professional wrestling business a little bit, not as a wrestler, but I have been invited behind the curtain, and I do have a bit of an inroad into Jimmy Hart and to Jerry and his cousin, Jerry Lawler, both of which who spent so much time with Andy. I hired Jimmy Hart once, and I mean, he told me over a dinner, he spent 3 hours telling me Andy Kaufman stories about they would go to Graceland all the time, because when Andy and Jerry were feuding back in the South, the good guys and the bad guys weren't supposed to talk to each other at all. So Jimmy would be the go-between. And so anyway, they went, when they would go to Graceland and they would do all these things. And I pride myself on knowing a lot of stuff. I had not heard that Meryl was one of the people that Andy wrestled. That you just blew me away with that. Are you still in contact with Meryl at all?
Oh yeah, by social media. We text back and forth once in a while. I'm not in touch with anybody really too often. Seriously, social media. COVID just knocked me out of the ball game. I didn't have it. I just didn't want to get it. I have a footnote, by the way.
Please.
I have a niece I love who's an attorney and also works in CAA's mixed martial arts division.
Okay.
And represents a lot of people there.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
a great footnote. No, that's phenomenal. I've got my granddaughter in MMA right now as well, and that's fantastic. Gerry, I'm so grateful that some of the people that we know married us together here in this connection. I'm really grateful for this. Please come back, sooner than later. I would love. I'm so grateful that you have taken time to do this. I don't know why it is, dude. Seriously, I don't know why I have this compulsion to be a torchbearer. It literally was my daughter-in-law sitting down, and it might have actually been Rupert's thing, where she was telling me a sketch that Ellen did. And I think it might have been even Rupert's hidden Mike, sketch that they used to do. And she basically said, "Oh, Ellen is so cutting edge and she's doing all this." And I'm like, no. And I sat her down and I made her watch so much of the stuff that you guys did. Because again, you shattered the fourth wall. You made us all part of it. And I think that maybe my response to wanting to be a person that helps make it so people don't forget. And the fact that I get a chance to talk to you about this, and I'm inelegant in talking about it again. This is the first time I've gotten nervous during this whole thing. Is I'm actually nervous talking to you because I just have so much reverence for everything that you guys did. You were there from the very beginning, Gerry, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much. The pathways in my brain are the way they are because of you guys. And no need to apologize. Yeah, no, don't need to apologize. I wear that as a badge of honor. You were part of something really, really special, Gerry. And I just got to tell you, myself and the emerging audience, the few dozen of us for this show, we really, really are grateful for everything that you guys did. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very flattered to even get the invitation, and I will be back if no libel litigation ensues from this performance. And
hey, we're fine on our end as long as you're okay on your end.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Gerry. I appreciate it so much. I'm going to do a quick outro here, and then we can go from there. They go really, really, really quick, and this one even went into overtime. Gerard Mulligan, so happy to have had him on here. You know what? I'm going to say this the one time until I don't have to say it anymore. If you like the Letterman podcast, please like it, share it, subscribe to it. Hell, even if you don't like it, please do the same thing, because the faster that happens and the audience kind of shows up and does what it's going to do, I don't have to say that anymore, but we do really appreciate it right now where people do that. We just want to preserve and revisit so much of this stuff that was just done one night, genius. We laughed and it got kind of thrown away because they had another show. It's really important, I think, that we pick up some of the stuff that got thrown away and talk about it again, because it was so first-rate, high-quality stuff. His name is Gerard Mulligan. My name is Mike Chisholm. This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast. Thank you and good night.
Overcoat and underpants.